All right. Well, okay, we have a quorum and we don't have a lot of other members. That's okay. I think some people are going to be watching this after the fact. So welcome to everybody. I'm going to call us to order. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes from the November meeting. We did not meet in December. So did anybody have any corrections or updates to the minutes that Deb did from November? None? All right. So hearing none, I would welcome a motion to approve the November meeting as presented.
I will.
All right, Julie moved and Mark seconded. All in favor of approving the November minutes? Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Hey.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. The minutes are accepted. All right. So I'm just going to go straight into officially the president's report of the state of the club. And kind of like I did last year, I wrote something out because I didn't want to miss anything. So I'm just going to read this to you all and to all of you who watch this later. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Tracy Reisinger. I'm the current ORRC president. And once again, it's been my privilege and honor to lead this club over the last year. I'm pleased to report the club is as strong as ever. We're doing really well and is in great shape financially, which Debbie will report later. But I'd like to start by acknowledging some wonderful volunteers. First, I'd like to introduce our returning board members, Mark Barrett, Deb Brown, who again can't be with us tonight, Susan Cooper, Debbie Hall, Adnan Maranovic, Joel Phillips, Valerie Pratt, and Julia Reisinger. I'd like to thank these returning board members for staying on and for their continuing service to the club. Thank you so much. I'd also like to welcome our newest board members, Carrie Fleischer and Mark Takazawa, as they join the board this month in their first official board meeting. Welcome.
Yay. Thank you.
Welcome.
And even though they're not here, I'd like to formally acknowledge, I'd like to thank our retiring board members, Daniel Brewer, Alan Cabelli, and Margie Palmrose. I want to thank them for their knowledge, their leadership, and thank them for their service to the club as they head off the board into well-deserved retirement. I know they'll continue to help us out in the future on future things. I'd also like to thank our race directors. We had 12 race directors for our 10 events in 2024, and we'll have 20 race directors, well, actually now 19 race directors for our 11 different events for 2025. There's too many to mention specifically, but Randy's here. Thank you, and Mark, and of course, many of you are all helping out. So I'd like to thank them for volunteering to come on board and help the club out in our events. It's really great to have more our race directors so we can spread out the load so it doesn't burn people out and we can all help each other out. With these new race directors, it's great. We were able to keep the Best Damn Run in Estacada on the calendar, and we were able to bring back an old favorite, Autumn Leaves. So that'll be great. Back to our calendar of events in 2025. So I just know that I appreciate each and every one of you and thank you for what you have done and will continue to do in 2025. We can't do this without you guys. I also want to acknowledge our different activity coordinators. The club had 11 different coordinators for different activities in 2024. Some have retired, so we are looking to replace them in 2025, but we still have a strong group of individuals taking on crucial roles to help run the club. We can't do that without these coordinators as well. Just some statistics. In 2024, we had 230 individual volunteers at all of our events, not including the high school groups that also helped out. This was up from 208 in 2023, so we had more volunteers. And it takes so many of us to put on the events that we do, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, can't do it without all of you, of our members and volunteers. The race directors and the board of directors and the coordinators are the faces of the club, but we do it all for you, and collectively together we make the club run. So it's a collective effort and you're all doing a wonderful job. So thank you, all those volunteers. In December of 2023, we had 713 members. That was down slightly from the same time the year before. So I'm pleased to report that as of December 2024, our membership is up to 744. So it's going in the right direction.
That's great.
And I had mentioned in our December e-newsletter that the budget that was approved for 2025 had some significant changes. The club relies mostly on membership dues and event income, specifically turkey trot income, to run the organization. And in 2025, we've shifted where our spending is going. So by saving funds on storage costs and professional services costs, we have saved over $30,000. That funding allows the club to spend more on its members and community outreach programs. It also allows individual events to not have to generate as much revenue to help meet club administrative costs. We get a lot of questions about the rising cost of registration fees, and to be honest, it simply costs more than ever. It costs more to put on events than it did 10 years ago. But we strive to keep our registration fees lower and competitive in the running scene while not losing money for any specific event. As long as an event doesn't lose money, we figure that's fine. I also mentioned in our December e-newsletter that I wanted to highlight 2 new budget areas that we want to stress to volunteers and event participants. When participants register for any ORRC event, there's a new donation question when they complete the sign-up process. We invite participants to donate to the club specifically toward the Community Outreach Fund, unless an event has indicated a specific charity or organization to donate to, such as the Alzheimer's Association for Ralph's Run. Also, if a volunteer doesn't need their $50 credit, they can donate it to the Pay It Forward Fund that assists those with financial difficulties paying for race fees. So race directors at all ORRC events use these funds to assist those who need help in paying to enter their events. And finally, I wanted to thank Foot Traffic for partnering with ORRC with our weekly group training runs, one on the west side, one on the Selwood location. It's great to be able to offer group training opportunities for our members. And again, we couldn't have done it without them. So in closing, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for supporting ORRC. I welcome your feedback, questions, and comments on how we're doing, good, bad, and ugly. We want to hear it all. We all need your input to help us run the club the way you want us to run it. So thank you again, and we'll see you out there on the roads. That is the state of the club so far. Okay. Any questions? All right. I will go ahead and move on to the next part. I sent all of you a conflict of interest form. And so you just need to read it. Yep, there you go. And just need you to print that out, fill it out, scan it, take a photo, however you want to do it, and then get that back to me as an attachment. So I have those for next year. Yeah, Mark.
We need to do it every year because I've done it before. It's a new thing every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my understanding from Dave Green long ago.
Cool.
So just fill them out and get them back to me. And if you don't, I will bug you for them. I will now turn it over to Debbie for the treasurer's report.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again. I missed everybody in December, but it was such a busy month that I guess it was a good thing that we didn't get to meet. Just a few points. As we go into the new year, thank you all for submitting all the receipts and all of the expenses for the races. It got a little slow. I got a new job over the break over the last quarter, so I've been trying to catch up with things. So I apologize if things are a little slow, but I think everything is caught up. I'm going to share a screen now. One moment. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on there. Let's see. I know it's strange. Hold on a second. Okay. So we did that. We approved the budget for 2025. I'm going to share here. Let's see. There we go. Okay. That's our budget for 2025. And let's see. I wanted to get to the 2024 one as well. All right. 2024 first. So these are the race numbers, except we don't have all of the turkey trot numbers in. If you're a numbers person and you've taken a good look at our 2024 numbers versus these race numbers, you'll notice they are not the same because there's some income, some expenses that are prior year, some are current year, but I try to keep just just to let everybody know. Try to keep these numbers here, the race numbers, specifically for the race. And Valerie, a year ago, had started to implement a system within our bookkeeping online QuickBooks to make it easier. And I think we've finally got that up and running. So we'll be able to do better reports, better reporting for the races and for the race expenses and income for the specific year, for the specific race, not necessarily for the year. But again, at the bottom there, Turkey Trot, we haven't realized all of the expenses yet. We haven't paid everything out, I believe. So that will keep going. Okay. I wanted to show, let's look at a different one that's a little better. The budgets versus the actuals here. We came out ahead, which is a really good thing. We weren't sure that was going to happen with some of the net losses we had on some of the races, which, you know, wasn't anything to do with any kind of any directors. There was weather, there was registration. It was sometimes didn't work, but overall we kept a really good income. And so I'm really happy that we have some space here. And I really like Tracy, what she said about kind of changing the focus a little bit and using some of the funds that, one, we have extra, and two, that we will save through other means to do better outreach from the club. Let me see if I can find this one. Our cash balances. So we came out with our cash and investments. We are now probably more, but as of December 31st, $376,748.53. And that is equal to a good amount, probably within a year of expenses if we didn't have any income at all, which is a good place for a nonprofit to be, in my opinion. Of course, we could have more reserves, but for now, that's a really good place to be. And I want to look at the 2025 approved. Well, first, yes, 2025 approved. Again, we've got more budget for, where is it? The outreach down here, community outreach up to 10,000. You'll see we have no money, no expenses yet in 2025. That's just, we haven't put them in yet. We haven't got them all for this month of January. And one other thing I wanted to show was, come on, come on. Oh, now I lost my place. Oh, the comparison. So as we don't have all the exact numbers for 2024 in here, but when they are, we'll be able to see side by side what happened in 2024 and how it's happening in 2025, which is going to be a great way to look at things and decide, okay, do we need this race, or what do we need to do in this instance? Or are we spending too much here? Or look at, we have a lot left there. So I think it's going to be a really nice, a really good year for our club and the budget. So I'm going to go to the budget again. Again, the 2025 budget, I'm going to leave it right here for a second. Does anyone have any questions or any comments?
Yeah, this is Mark T. So got a question. I don't know if this is a line item expense or not, but since it's not an expense, what about like goodwill or in-kind stuff?
We haven't tracked that traditionally here. It's a little hard for accounting purposes to track that. So we haven't.
So if I get donations or something from a vendor, would it just be like a side note on our individual race report?
Well, on the race report, probably yes. And
Okay.
I haven't received any kind of reports as to specific amounts for an in-kind donation. But that's, you know, it's not to say we can't do that. It's just we haven't. And yes, that would be a good thing to put on the race report.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to put on the race report just in case, you know, if you didn't get it the next year, kind of keeping track of what you might have to spend if you have to pay for it yourself.
Okay. Yeah, because like last year I got Willamette Valley Pie to donate all their pies. So, but it wasn't a expense because they didn't charge us.
Exactly.
That's nice. That's good to know. So, and those are things that sometimes I just don't know about, but if
Yep.
becomes something we can actually put into there if we really need to.
Okay.
So Debbie, I had a question that the screen you showed a minute ago
Mhm.
had the 2024 and the 2025 side by side, but the 2025 already has expenses entered in.
Oh, look at
That
that.
doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I think we just didn't take them out. We put the 2024 in there and didn't take them out. So just don't pay no attention to that column
Okay.
right now.
Pay no attention
Well,
to them.
yeah,
I
this will
think
be all,
those were the
yeah.
estimated expenses. They weren't the actual expenses. We just didn't
Yeah.
take.
yeah. So we'll fix this up for next month for sure. Thanks for pointing that out, Susan.
So I have a
Was there-
question on the interest income on this, interest and investment income.
Yeah.
It jumps quite a bit in 25 versus what was in 24. What accounts for that jump to 7,900?
Well, we have a lot of, we moved, before I was in here, I think it was even when Valerie started, moved a lot of our investments to another place. So we have some income there that we didn't have before.
Okay.
Yeah, the interest income for 2024 was actually closer to like 12 or 13,000. And so what we did is we actually just made it an amount that would balance the budget.
Right.
We'll probably end up getting more than that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
there-
Thank you.
One thing that when we first came on board a year and a half ago, we talked about, because we do have funds in different investments, is creating a finance committee to kind of figure out what we want to do with the funds, if we want to, move them around or have them be more liquid depending on where they are. So that might be something that we want to consider doing over the course of this next year. I mean, no hurry, but something to think about of examining where our funds currently are and if we want to move them around.
Okay.
Definitely. And if you're interested, if anyone is interested in that subcommittee, just let me know.
All right.
I think that's it, unless anyone has anything else.
Did you have a question? Okay. Great. Thank you, Debbie. Next report, I'm going to have Julie talk about the 1200 Club.
May I
Oh,
may I
Daniel?
ask a question, please?
Yeah, Daniel.
Not so much a question, just have a clarification. I talked to Mark for a few minutes after his race, and he was asking me about the Venmo account that I was trying to get started up this time last year. I just
Oh, yeah.
wanted to let you guys know where that ended up falling down. It was suggested that we get Venmo going so people can pay that way or for whatever reasons we need. At that particular time, Debbie and Valerie were both transitioning and they were moving the account to
Right.
another bank. So they suggested that we wait until that was all settled down. And to be honest with you, I never brought it up again. So that's kind of where that fell. So if somebody wants to pick up that ball and get that going, great. But we tried to make some progress on it, but correctly so, we decided to delay that while the two transitions we had to make took place. So that's where that left, and I hope that that's some clarification. So you can blame the guy that's outgoing, so that nobody really can take the blame.
No, no blame. Things happen. We all, I mean, yeah, there's no blame.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, Julie, 1200 Club. The 1200 Club in 2024, that was its 12th year. It started in 2013. It had another 30 participants earn jackets this year, and another 81 got patches after completing 1200 miles in one calendar year. The 2024 participation numbers were higher than 23, with 171 registered for the club compared to 150 in 2023. Through the course of the last decade, 776 members have participated, and of those, 586 have earned the coveted jackets. Right now, we have 11 individuals have completed 1200 miles each of the last 12 years. So, and Mark and I are two of them. To date, we already have 148 registered for 2025. That's up from 124 at the same time last year. And also, just as a side note, when Tracy mentioned that we're accepting donations when people register for the club, the 1200 Club is free for members, but to date, we've already had over $580 in donations from the participants. So yay.
Yes.
Thanks for mailing. That's it. 1200 Club is still going strong. Yep. Okay, lots of positive comments. All right. The next thing I wanted to bring up, which I did mention in the State of the Club, was positions needing filled, and there's basically 5. Some more important than others. Julie and I already are taking care of the awards banquet for this year, but we do need somebody who would be willing to take that on for the award banquet for 2026, because that's in January. So you're going to be planning it and finding a spot and things like that. We also could use somebody who coordinates the expos that we attend. And since Margie retired, we need somebody to take on membership. And then also somebody to take on the member challenge coordinator. And that's basically just tracking with Jeff Huber, who's doing, who's completed 4 events in the course of the year. And then finally, somebody in charge of the member picnic for July, which we currently do not have for this year. So I didn't know if, I didn't hear from anybody, but did anybody want to take on one of those roles for this year or 2026 for the banquet? You're not sure yet, you can let me know later after the meeting. You can email me if you have questions about it, because right now Julie and I are doing it, and it's not hard, but it's just additional things that we're doing on top of everything else. So would appreciate somebody taking one of those roles on if they could.
Talk a little bit about the membership coordinator role. How much time spent is that?
That's pretty minimal. Basically what you're doing is you're monitoring the membership email and answering questions if you can. If you don't know the answer, you would contact me. You would have access to the membership database, because sometimes people say, well, I don't know what's going on with membership. And so you would look that person up to see if they, what the status of their membership is. So you would need to become familiar with RunSignUp, because that's where our membership is. But it's pretty minimal. We do not get that many questions other than people saying, can you check on the status? Because I'm not sure how to do it.
Right.
There's also some people who simply cannot manage our membership. Some of our members are older and simply can't manage the technology. We do not have paper membership forms to mail in to renew your membership. You have to do it online. So I have a couple of times emailed back and forth with members saying, hey, mail a check to us at this address, and when we get it, I'll manually update your membership expiration date. I'm doing that for one person already.
Okay.
So it's pretty minimal.
Yeah. I mean, I would be willing to do it. I'm already in the volunteer box on a daily basis. And that is not all, there's just not that much stuff that usually comes in. So I mean, if it's not a big time spend and I'm already going in and checking emails, I'm happy to, at least try that and see how it goes.
And Carrie,
Let somebody
membership's even a lighter lift than volunteers.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
So it's,
God, yeah.
yeah. So that's totally fine. If that would help out, I can just look at both of them because I go in every day at this point anyway. So if you need me to do that, I would be willing to do that.
Cool, that would be great.
And I can do member tracking. So
Mark Takazawa, you could do member?
yeah, I could do member tracking for the races.
Oh, for the membership challenge coordinator?
Is that the tracking with Jeff Huber?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I could do that.
Awesome. And I will, I'll get you information on that and get you in touch with Jeff. with
Okay.
that.
So then Tracy, just figure out what board members aren't here and then they get the other ones.
That's awesome.
Deb Brown's already taken on a race director work. Yeah. Joel, hey.
I can help out with the second part of that membership coordinator part. Anything about like pulling those reports and things on membership. I've done some of that before, so I can help you.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome.
I did have a question for you, Adnan, if you could do this. We were wondering, as we have this donation, each race has a financial report that says how much money is from registration fees and how much is from donations. And what I'd like to do over the course of the year is track how much donations we get from each event. So if you could maybe track that and so we can see.
Is there any place that was tracked over the last year? I saw we had like $2,000 in donations.
We had
over
it last year. We didn't ask the question last year until pretty late, so
Forgot, okay.
some
Okay,
might
yeah.
have had a question before, but I think this is the first year where every event will have it.
Okay, yeah, that should be pretty straightforward.
And that includes the race director workshop, 1200 Club, not just races. It's everything that's in Run Sign Up. So
Yeah, all of our Debbie, you're muted, Debbie.
Sorry about that. Yes, Adnan, if you could copy me on any of that report too, then I can make sure it's properly attributed within our accounting. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if any, so that just leaves member picnic, expo coordinator, and award banquet. But again, if you're, they're not super hard, but if you're interested in helping out, that would be great. Let's see. So next we have, does anybody have, there's nobody other than the board members here. So I was going to say, any questions for the board, visiting members, but we don't have any visiting members. So.
I beg your pardon?
That's right, Daniel, you're a visiting member.
There is somebody here that's not a board, that's a visitor.
Okay, so I'm just going to go straight into the next thing is a recap of Ralph's run. Mark Barrett.
Short version, it just worked. I mean, good things. The numbers are up from last year, which is good. Had almost too many volunteers, which is a good problem to have. The weather could have been better, but it could have been worse. So happy with that. I can say just couple, based on the feedback from the runners, the post-race survey, a couple little things to tweak for next year. But from my perspective, it just worked, and I am, as always, grateful to every person that showed up and every volunteer. And, it's Carrie stepping up. She did the food for Turkey Trot, and she helped with organized the pancake feed. Got to work with the crew from the Forest Grove UCC. Found out what a great bunch of people they are. They just come in, they do their thing, and everybody at least full of pancakes. And Carrie got some things right, learned some things to do differently next year, I know.
Yes.
And
Yep.
Pre-cooked sausage, pro tip. But
It all worked though.
No.
Yeah, it was just it just worked. It's like one of those moments where I, as a race director, the best thing I can do is to delegate everything. And so all I have to do is stand there and, accept compliments and all that great stuff. And like having Blake do the announcing, so I didn't have to worry about doing the awards. Blake took care of that. And for me, it's just those moments where I just kind of stand in the cafeteria and I see people that haven't seen each other for a while. Daniel stopped by. He missed seeing Carol. It was great just talking to Carol, Ralph's wife, about things. And one of Ralph's granddaughters ran her first 5K, and on her back of her shirt said "Running for Papa." So it just moments like that. It's just everything that makes ORRC what ORRC is. It's community. We sweat together. We eat together. We share our stories, and I don't know. It was just a good thing.
Yeah. It was great. We left right after the run started, but it was really great beforehand. And I love the picture that Lester took of Carol. I mean, at the starting line, that was a great shot.
It was a great race, Mark. Everything came off beautifully, and I think I was there pretty much till the bitter end, so I didn't see any problems.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so for upcoming events, we have the awards banquet on January 25th. Hope you will all, as many of you as can, will be attending. Spaghetti Factory. We will have food. We will have food this year. The banquet will include food. We also have Hagg Mud going on February 15th, and it's coming along great. Mark Freese and Deb Brown are working really hard on that, and they're doing a great job.
They said the numbers are down registrant wise, but that's also because they went down to 1 day instead of 2.
Yeah.
So that's why the numbers are down.
The race director workshop is set for Saturday, March 1st, and we have 7 people signed up already. We had to move the location. It's still with the library. No, it's not. Yes, with the library, but it's at a different location of the library because the Brookwood one wasn't available.
So it's now going to be at Bethany.
You can't reserve rooms until 60 days beforehand. And then when we tried to reserve it, they said, oh no, that room's not available that day. They said, oh no, that room's not available that day. Great. Okay. So, but then we have the Shamrock Expo in March. And again, remind everybody to sign up for shifts at the booth, both that Friday and Saturday. We definitely need people to cover that. And then Champoeg is coming up March 22nd. Mark T, do you want to just give a quick update, if anything, there?
No, it's about 2 months out. Numbers are kind of low, but then it usually picks up in the last 6 weeks. So
Yeah.
I figure we'll probably have at least 200 to 300.
Yeah. I think you're still ahead of last year this time, so you're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. We'll probably make a pretty big push. So
We'll start marketing it. That and Hagg Mud we're marketing.
okay, yeah, perfect.
I did have a question for all of you. In the course of an event, a gentleman emailed us and said he had purchased insurance for, I forget what I think it was Turkey Trot. And he said, hey, I purchased insurance and I couldn't make it. So what do I do to get this money back? And I'm like, what are you talking about? But apparently RunSignUp has an option that they added this year or late last year. And participants, when they register, can pay for event insurance. And it just means that if they don't attend for any reason, they can get some money back. What that means is, but the thing is, they don't come to us for the money. And we had to contact RunSignUp and say, what is this? And it's not an ORRC insurance policy. It's not an ORRC insurance policy. It's not a refund policy on our part. And if they can't make it, they then contact the insurance company directly, and the insurance company pays them directly. So we found out that some of our races have actually turned this option on. Obviously, Turkey Trot had, because we didn't know about it. But a lot of our other events have not turned this option on for their events. And so I guess my question is, do we want our events to have this option turned on? And or is it an RD prerogative, I guess, but it could affect how RDs want to offer refunds. Like, I'm not going to give you a refund because we want the insurance company to take care of it. You know, I see Daniel going, no, no, no. And I'm like, I don't know enough about, I always get trip insurance when I'm traveling, but that's not for a $35 or $70 event. It's for thousands of dollars. So I just didn't know if this is something we want to have all of our events offered. Do we want to leave it up to race directors? How you want to just make sure you're aware of it.
I was reading Daniel Brewer's body language, and I kind of feel the same way that he does. It's just, these things are not such high dollar things. It's not like flying to the Big Island for the Ironman where you're going to pay, I don't know, $1,000 for the race entry and $3,000 to fly over and back. And it's $70 or $80, or it's $40 or $50.
My thought was they're going to confuse us with the insurance company. And I don't want to get into that. I don't want to say, no, we don't. We say on our thing that they're non-refundable. And yet they say, but I bought this insurance, so I get my refund. And I don't want us to have to get in the middle of, well, you have to contact this other agency and they'll get a bad taste in their mouth because they've got to jump through hoops.
It'd be better. It would be better if we could have that option turned off on all of our races so that they can't do it.
So is this something that automatically, like there's a default in RunSignUp that it's getting turned on, or the race directors, when they're setting up RunSignUp, they're having to actually make a decision to turn it on? decision to turn it on?
So I think RunSignUp started turning it on for some races. If you when you renewed it, if you didn't check off or no, yes or no.
So the race directors may not have even known that.
Yeah. And it's about
Okay.
half of our races have it checked and about half of them don't. So I don't think it's anything the race directors have done. I think it's just something that came up when they were when the race was renewed.
I wouldn't offer it.
I'm seeing a general consensus that we want to have it turned off.
Yeah.
Speaking for the races that I RD or co-RD, that I would think the default should be off. And if individual race directors does want it turned on, they can do that. But I think for the club, the consensus I'm hearing is default that such a thing is off.
Okay.
So, and if you could check, because like I said, I renewed Vernonia, but I don't remember if I missed it or not. And I'll be renewing, Hagg Road here pretty quick, and I don't know. So
What I'll do is I'll go through all of the races and turn it off for now.
Okay.
There was one event that somebody had actually paid for it that was currently on, but we'll check with that. So so we'll follow up on that.
And race insurance is good. However, I'm pretty adamant I would not want it for Champoeg.
Yeah.
So if it's on, it wasn't on purpose. So.
Right.
I'm betting that RunSignUp just automatically defaulted it to on when people renewed their events when they added it to their system. So okay, great. We will turn it off. Awesome.
Do we communicate directly with RunSignUp, and would they take feedback from us?
Oh yeah, we can communicate with them. We can contact them.
Well, I think we should. I think we should just tell them that for all ORRC events, we don't want it to be a possibility on the sign up. Then it'll never happen.
Yeah. All right. We have other events, 2025 events, but I'm going to put those off into another meeting because we don't need to discuss them now. I will just do a quick check-in. Everything is all set for you guys for the RRCA convention. You're all good to go. Mark, you were in charge of that.
yeah, I'm going to lead on that. There are 6 people from our club going, and all 6 are registered. I've also reserved rooms that don't, for the hotel, and we'll be buying plane tickets. They're kind of high right now, so kind of waiting a little bit, see if they go down a little bit, kind of a thing. But before January is over, we'll be buying the plane tickets as well. So it's all on schedule. And as I have mentioned in the past, it's my old stomping ground. The featured race for the convention this year is the Get in Gear 10K, which runs along the River Road. So half the course is in St. Paul, half of it is in Minneapolis. And it's a route that I've run more times than I can count. So it's my backyard. So I'm looking at trying to build in a little side trip time. We'll go to the convention, we'll do all that good stuff. But if there's time left over, we'll visit the Mall of America and some other great places around the Twin Cities to show off my my old hometown. But all that's on schedule.
Great. Okay. I want to say Duel got a race director. I will say also want to update everybody. We do have a new race director for Duel, in case you didn't know. Kim Kovacs, who is our current our ORRC coordinator for the Selwood Thursday night training group, is going to be the race director for Duel, and she also has another person, Sarah Welsh, who is going to be a helper, a super volunteer to help her with that. So we met last night with Daniel and went over a bunch of stuff, and so that's moving along, and they are very excited about that.
And is Kim a member of ORRC?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, she has to be to be our coordinator to buy the pizza, but also her husband is a walker, and he's done Duel many times too, so they're very familiar with you. Yeah.
Well, then, kind of a side note on that. Had a shadow RD with me, one of them. Forget her name, but one of the RDs for Best Damn Run shadowed me at Ralph's Run, and it was
Is it Melody or Tyra?
I'm so bad with names. I'm sorry.
One of the two.
But she didn't run away screaming. So no, she said she is. It's her first time as a race director, but she is also an experienced event director. You know, non-running things, and just follow me around. She got a sense of what a typical day is like, and she did not seem fazed by it. It's like, because you have a plan, you implement the plan, you're ready there to, things don't work quite the same way, so you think on your feet, what do you do? And and it was all familiar territory for her. So I have good confidence that Best in Run will be a success in the hands of the new RDs.
Great. Awesome. Okay, the other thing I wanted to bring up, we had a couple, just a reminder, the community outreach applications are due by the end of February, and we'll discuss them at our March meeting. So if you know of anybody who wants to submit applications for some funding, be sure they get them in.
We're doing this going out in the newsletter.
And that's going to be going out in the newsletter too, so we'll let them know. There was also a question, since we now have 2 sound systems, do we want to purchase, it's not super expensive, but do we want to purchase a Spotify account so we can easily have music at our events? The sound system has you can play the radio stations on it, and you can also use Bluetooth. My thing that had all my songs on it is too old, doesn't have Bluetooth on it, so I couldn't use it with the sound system. But if somebody wanted to have music with our sound system and they have something that uses Bluetooth, they could do that with our sound system. I'm just not familiar with it. But we just didn't know if we wanted to have ORRC have a Spotify account so you could easily have music if you had a device there. Valerie?
Would it work right on the sound system so you wouldn't have to use the Bluetooth on your phone? Because that's always my problem. I need to use my phone during the race,
There's all sorts of plugins in the sound system. There's USB drives and there's other things, and it connects to Bluetooth. I'm just not sure how that all works. So.
Well, for what it's worth, at Ralph's Run, you had a 20-something on the finish, working the finish line, and the speaker was there. I told him, every now and then, you cheer him in, kind of thing. And he had his phone, and he, of course, technology, right? He just plugged it in and was playing music using his phone. So, part of it is just either an age thing or a knowledge thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I know how to hook my phone to the Bluetooth, but then you don't have the phone to use if you're
So if there was an alternative, a non-phone way to access Spotify. The other thing, of course, is to be, I'm not sure what the legality of that is in terms of, how can I say, the whole ASCAP thing. I mean, if you just have, I'm not sure if we've discussed this before, but the issue with that, with paying musicians for playing their music.
Yeah, we pay BMI and ASCAP fees, so we can play music at our events.
So we are. That's not so legally. That's not an issue. We're covered legally for paying with our RRCA membership. So that's good. It's good to hear that. So it just comes down to technology and knowing how to use it.
Does anybody know how?
We're talking to the wrong crowd.
No, we're talking to the wrong.
How much is the Spotify? How much does it cost for the Spotify?
I want to say it's like $15 a month or something like that. It's not an incredibly large amount.
Get the Spotify. I would get the Spotify, because if someone doesn't want to use it, if a race director wants to use some other, they know how to do the Bluetooth and all that, they can. But then for others that, like with Valerie, I need to have my phone, then they have the option for $15 a month. I mean,
so like $15 is a subscription. So I don't think this sound system has like a built-in Spotify player.
Right.
I would go against getting a Spotify account, because what you need to do is have somebody log into it every time to go there. And I guess I'm kind of with Mark here, is generally somebody there can just hook up to it and kind of do what they need to do. I feel like that's more of a logistics issue, either having like an extra phone on hand or something like that. But the Spotify account itself, I don't know, like solves it entirely, unless we have like a dedicated ORRC phone that's always logged in kind of thing. Because I mean, if it was me controlling it, I'd rather just use my own rather than logging into someone else's. I can just play whatever music we'd like to or whatever it is.
Could we ask, could we add a volunteer position to each race for someone to have to be at the finish line with the stereo system and monitoring, like plugging in their phone
The
for
DJ.
a DJ? Yeah, the DJ, basically. DJ. I'm just looking at, Randy had a comment here. You can probably download a playlist onto a USB drive and just plug it into the speaker.
That's
And
what we tried.
That's cool.
I mean, they couldn't
Yeah.
do it with my iPod, but my iPod was super, super old. If
iPod.
it was just a,
Tracy.
yeah, iPod Nano, it's super tiny. They don't make them anymore. Don't make them anymore. Don't support them anymore. But if you could just like put a bunch of songs onto a USB drive and then stick that in and play it. I don't
Does that
know.
work? I
Does
don't know.
that work? I'm just not sure what the
Well,
technology.
that would, if that worked, that'd be cool because someone that's like really good at picking, like you did with your zoo songs, you know, you could have different one, you know, like running kind of theme songs and energetic songs.
Okay, so we basically don't necessarily need a Spotify account. We just need some type of technology to use, so we know how to use our.
Well, also, if even the old school iPod has got a headphone jack on it, and you can plug that directly into the speaker. So you can use that iPad, you just don't use it directly from the Bluetooth. So, because I did it for Duel. This is mine right here. And
That's what we have.
I just plugged it into the speaker with a
So using the headphone jack
audio
instead
jack, and it was fine.
of the
I
USB.
mean,
Okay.
I don't think a Spotify counts.
We'll experiment. We'll experiment. See if that works.
So I got a concern with the Spotify accounts, and it's like for Champoeg, we have a kids run, so we need PG version songs.
Oh yeah.
So I like to take my own playlist. Valerie, I don't know your thoughts on that, but
I'm fine with that, Mark.
yeah.
Yes. So we will
I
not
just
get.
want to be able to use my phone.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, got it. So no, thank you for that. We will research. The final discussion that may have to go for later because we might need to do some research on this, but I'm going to bring this up, and Carissa already knows about this, but we were going to have a discussion about it at some point. I had a member reach out to me who wanted to know if we could add Bluesky links to our Facebook page. I think we already have links to Twitter. Is that correct? I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this correctly because I don't use any of this stuff. So she's saying she doesn't use Twitter/X anymore. She uses Bluesky.
Bluesky's the newest one. Or
Bluesky's the newest one. And she was wondering if we would add that to whatever we do. She also, no, I'm so technologically proficient here. She also asked if we could remove Twitter/X, and I'm like, this is not something I am totally, sure of. I don't know how active our Twitter/X account is. I don't know. I don't want to get into political of we have this one over here and this one over here. I just want to make sure.
Why was there a request to remove the member wanted Twitter or X removed?
She said she understood if we couldn't, but she was wondering if we thought about removing Twitter/X from our links.
Why would we do that?
That's
to include it in relatively non-political terms. Elon Musk bought Twitter and now calls it X. He's made many changes. One of the changes is not censoring people anymore. And so there's some bad actors are allowed to say bad things on Twitter that they didn't used to be able to do. Bluesky was created to be a similar platform, but with the ability to censor bad actors, bad speakers. And that's why a lot of former Twitter/X users are switching to Bluesky.
And also, on Friday, TikTok turns into a pumpkin. So
Unless Elon buys it.
Unless you want to talk about
Our X/Twitter account has not had a post since May 10th, 2023.
Correct. So one
Just
thing we
get
have to
rid of it.
we have- yeah, we have to understand that some platforms allow us as an organization to have a presence. Facebook does, so we manage that. Instagram does, so we're managing that as org. Twitter does also, and it's kind of bad that we have it because we aren't keeping it up. So if you have the account, you should probably like keep it up and not have the most recent post be from many, many years ago. But my understanding, I have not used Bluesky, is that it's set up differently and you can't have like an organization set up an account. I think it's just users. So I think we need to learn a little bit more about how that's applicable to the club. I think people use hashtags only. I'm just not clear how we would like make that a connection to our club. I personally am fine with like letting go to Twitter X thing. And that
Yeah, I mentioned it was May 2023, but the next most recent post was January 2020.
yeah.
We don't really use it at all. I don't know if it would be any
We don't
detriment to lose
use
it.
It used to be kind of a must because Twitter was popular, but really after Musk bought it, a lot of people left the platform, and I think it's not considered a must anymore because of that.
also,
Carissa, just really quick, it's saying I'm getting that organizations can have a Bluesky account, but I'm sure there's some
Okay,
co-work involved with it, you know.
okay.
Because you use your website domain as the username.
I didn't know that. But
Oh,
you would still need
that's what
to-
I'm reading on the internet, doesn't mean it's true.
I guess we'd still need someone to manage it though, and
There's that.
Well, to my mind, this just gets to the broader issue of, you know, how do we reach a broader audience? You know, where are the kids these days? You know, if you had a MySpace account, it's not going to do you any good anymore, kind of a thing. You know, and I guess I am not the person. But whoever it is has a better sense of, you know, what social media are being used and who are the target audiences, who are they reaching? You know, if the joke is if your grandma's on Facebook, you don't want to be on Facebook anymore, kind of a thing.
well, but we like grandmas too, though. So I mean,
Well, that's Facebook for us, but
I'm not saying leave your grandmas behind. I'm saying let's, I believe it's a general principle that we should use the social media platforms that reach the people we want to reach. You know, if we get a TikTok account, then, you know, Valerie is going to have to start doing dancing and all of that. So
that's gonna happen.
so maybe not TikTok, but the point being that, someone who is more savvy than I am to just take a look at what's out there and who the target audience is for each of the platforms and decide which, and not get too many, but get, which platforms are the best to reach the people we want to reach.
Yeah, different demographics and
Keep Instagram, keep Facebook, but if we were to add a third or maybe a fourth, what would be the best one to add? Kind of a thing.
Was the original request, I want to go back to the original request, and I'm hearing, and I if we're not using Twitter X, I don't use it myself, but I mean, if we as a club aren't using it, I agree that we shouldn't have something out there that doesn't have a lot of activity on it. But is the original request to remove it a member that wants us to remove it because they don't agree with Twitter X? Is that the genesis of the request? I just want to make sure I understand where that came from.
Her first request, I think, was she wanted to have Bluesky added because that's where she was active.
Mm-hmm.
She really wasn't adamant that we do it. I want to put that, this was a very polite thing of like, if you can talk about it, just because of everything. And my logic is not so much remove it for the political reasons, but because of the lack of activity on it. And that's where I was going, well, if we don't use it, then just
I agree.
But If we
And I-
add Blue Sky, do we have someone with the bandwidth to keep it
Yeah, and I
up?
would say
Well,
that was my next comment was, I don't want to be adding things if we don't have the volunteers who have the bandwidth to keep it active and engaging to the members. I'd rather not have it at all than have it be not really good use of it. So that's kind of my logic, is let's not necessarily add Blue Sky, but I think we should get rid of Twitter if it's not active at all. It's like, just don't bother and move forward from there.
Yeah.
One thing we could do as a project in the year, we could send an email out to members of our membership and just say, we're looking to improve our social media to attract younger members.
What do you use?
What do you use? And would anybody be willing to volunteer to help set us up or something like that? But that could be later. Yeah, just kind of something to our members, or email to our database and saying, we're looking at expanding. And we could even explain then, if we remove Twitter, it's like, hey, I don't know if you noticed, nobody ever used it, so we removed it, but we're looking.
Instead of younger, I'd just say or members of all
Diversity.
ages.
Yeah. Diversity. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it, because I'm clueless when it comes to this stuff. So that's it. All right. That's all I have. Did you guys have any other comments or questions or agenda, things to talk about?
What's on the menu for at the Spaghetti Factory?
Hmm.
We had, okay. we actually had three choices. Was it? Yeah, it was three choices, right?
Three choices, yeah.
Meat sauce, mushroom sauce, and the Mazithra cheese.
Mm.
Those are the three choices. I think what's going to happen is, instead of a buffet, they're going to come around and ask what you want and bring you what you want. Forget what we. And then you'll also get a salad and
Bread
and ice cream, I think.
and ice cream.
Something like that. Yeah. So the standard Spaghetti Factory.
I just wanted to make a public statement here to Mark. First of all, great job on the race. Even though I was only there a little bit, it was really nicely done. I just wanted to remind Mark that on Tuesday, once again, I become his senior for 3 months, so I'm expecting a higher level of respect than he usually gives me. And
Well,
then-
we're starting pretty low, so we can only go up from here.
I know.
So
I just wanted to point out, Mark and I have I need him to respect his elders, with us.
Excellent.
always, always.
And Mark, Daniel, you weren't here during my State of the Club, but I do want to thank you for your years and years of service and your commitment to helping us with the transition and everything that you've done over the last year and a half, and appreciate all you've done for us.
Oh yeah, Carrie's husband sticking.
Hey,
And I was-
Jordan came out of retirement.
And I would say Carrie's husband, Drew, is taking over for Daniel as the technology volunteer.
Yeah, we need, and Carrie, Drew and I need to get together. I think we were talking about getting together for lunch or something. So
I'll remind him.
we need to catch up anyway, so.
Yeah,
uh,
very
I
good.
should also ask the two newest members, Mark Takazawa and Carrie, did you get your board member email addresses all set up with Daniel and Drew?
I saw mine on the website today, so I need to go in, and I haven't accessed it yet, but I know that they've been set up. Daniel, I think you had set them up previously, didn't you?
I set them up last week in December. I wanted
Yeah.
them to go first of the year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'll have to double check too, because I
Yeah,
haven't.
'cause
I have the
most of the information that you get, like, invitation to board meetings and other announcements or just questions and stuff, will actually now start going to your board member
Okay.
email address. So be sure to, and volunteer coordinator is already on the board of directors emailing batch, but just want to make sure you don't miss anything.
Okay, perfect.
So I
Thank you.
unceremoniously either send off or disabled 5 email accounts for myself, except for now. We did hand off Duel yesterday. Randy already has Dave's, and that's an entirely new email address. And then technology is all set up. Drew can log in whenever he wants, or I haven't changed the password, so. But Drew is now set up as his contact information is set up as the recovery numbers. So if you need me, you have all my old email addresses, and just use those. That's how you're gonna find me.
We'll find you. We'll find you.
I
All
know.
right. Well, thank you, everybody, again. Welcome to the new year, and I'm looking forward to a fun year of events and activities. Don't forget to sign up for an Expo shift at the Shamrock Run. And we'll see you all at the next meeting in February.
All right.
Actually, hopefully see you all at the banquet. Yes. All right.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.